What's up, what's up?
What's up, brother?
How's it going?
Good, man. Thanks for coming.
Yep, you're doing it.
We are. We're here. First one. Had to be with you.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, man. I wanted to start this thing because of the conversations that we have. It's valuable enough for us to have these conversations to where, we want to make sure that that we have them, and we will get up early in the morning to go have them. So I figured, why not have them, here and share with others. But there was one specific ride home that I was having, and I was talking to you, and I was trying to articulate what I was feeling as far as being a dad, and I couldn't really put it together. And then at one point I just said, I know what it is. It's guilt. I'm feeling guilt. I'm feeling guilt that I can't be at home with my kids and then also provide for them at the same time. Right. And that was like an aha moment for me. Right. And you were busy, and I was busy, and you're like, look, I got to go.
So now you're making me feel guilty because I don't have time for you.
But then you were like, I got to go, but I feel exactly the same way.
Right.
And let's have another conversation about it.
Right.
And for me, it was like, okay, it felt good to finally be able to put into words what the emotion that I was feeling, and I couldn't, figure it out.
Right.
But then it also felt good for you to be like, man, I feel exactly the same way. And so I just thought that, we had to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the conversation, and it's true. Like I had to go, and it's crazy because you bring up the word guilt, and like there I was at that moment, guilty that I couldn't listen to my friend, right? So, but I said I felt exactly the same way. I mean, I have 3 kids now, right? So you can relate.
Yeah.
With 3, with the trio. But 8 years old, 6 years old, and 6 months. And so every time I leave the house, I'm thinking like, all right, like, can I spend more time with them somehow, some way? It could even be something basic, like going to the store. Like, should I take them with me just to spend time in the car together? If I'm going to work, I mean, is there any way I can take them with me? And of course I can't. But I mean, guilt is something that has definitely become a stronger feeling. I mean, with my firstborn, I didn't really feel too guilty at first, but as the years have gone on, he's gotten older. I feel like I need to spend more time with him, and then of course, my daughter, she's 6. Got to spend more time with her, and now the 6-month-old, I can't leave it all up to the wifey. Right. So, and then you feel guilty about not spending time with the wifey, right?
Absolutely.
So I mean, we're talking about kids, but then there's the wifey too. So, and I think one thing we talked about is like, there's several relationships, right, in the family. Like, it's not just a whole family relationship. Like, you have a relationship with one son, and then a relationship with his daughter, and then a relationship with your other son, and with your wife. So in all reality, it's like, what? My math is bad, but like, what is that, like 5 different relationships?
Yeah. And
then you multiply that times everyone else's relationship in the other direction. So, like you gotta give these relationships time, but that's why I feel guilty, because I know they require time.
And it's impossible. It feels like it's impossible to give everybody what they need all the time.
Exactly.
Right? So you could be like, oh, my son needs a little more from me.
Right.
And then you go, you're like, I'm going to have some one-on-one time with him. Right. But as you're doing that, you can't fully enjoy it because you're like, well, now the other person's going to be deficient. One of the other kids is going to really need me, right?
Right.
And so you can only be so many places at one time, and you need the one-on-one time, you need the group time,
right? And
then you still got to go out and work too,
and take care of my business,
right?
Because then I feel guilty about not taking care of my business, right?
Right.
So I mean, I got to go make money, I got to go make moves, in the job, and so if I'm not doing those things, then I feel guilty towards the job too. But obviously the priority is the family, but all in all, it's just a balance. Not to mention friends. I mean, we're just talking about our families right now and our kids, but I
You
mean,
didn't mention yourself.
yeah, I haven't even mentioned myself yet. You're right.
We talked a lot about that.
Man.
You've invited me to go hoop, and we've done that. And when we talk there, the way that we, I guess, can feel a little less guilty
Right.
is, hey, this is making us better, right? This is
Right.
fulfilling us, so that way we can go and be the best versions of ourselves for our kids.
That's exactly
But
right.
we can't just go hoop and not even think of that. We have those things running through our minds because, I guess a perfect example is when, I went to school for 9 years, Van Wilder style, and everyone told me when I graduated, like, oh, you're gonna miss it. You're gonna miss it.
Right.
You wait. And I kept saying, no, I'm not.
Right.
I'm not gonna miss it, and I have not missed it one day. And
Right.
the reason why is because I told them that I feel like I can never rest because I could always be studying. I could always be making flashcards.
Right.
I could always be doing better job of my homework or writing a paper. So I never could rest.
Right.
Well, I feel I still agree with that, but at the same time, I feel that I just got that in a different thing, and it's with the family.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, because I mean, we're talking about like back then. It was all about ourselves. I mean, what did we feel guilty about, right? I mean, we felt guilty maybe about like our parents or siblings or if we had like a girlfriend or something like that, but it wasn't that serious.
Right.
But now like they say like when you're little kids like oh when you get to the real world right so yeah I mean this is a different chapter. It's a different world for us. I mean 10 even 20 years ago we were nowhere near these conversations about guilt.
Oh yeah.
I mean
Well, I heard a couple things recently, and one of them is that millennial dads spend 3 times as much time with the kids than their own dads. That's
Yeah.
just one generation, right? 3 times as much,
right.
right? Where are we grabbing that time from, right?
Well, and why are we doing that? Why are we spending more time with our kids?
That's a great question. You want to
So-
shed some light on that?
I mean, look, like as millennials, like why are we spending more time with our kids? Why are we even having this conversation right now? Like I brought it up to you before, like were our dads having this conversation? 30 years ago?
No.
Were they considering like, hey, do I feel guilty like going out with the boys? I don't know. Like I don't know if they were having this conversation, but yeah, I mean, I believe that statistic that like millennial dads are spending more time with their kids. I think we definitely give it more attention. I mean, I'm not gonna say like dads in the past, didn't care, didn't want to spend time with their kids as much, but I feel like, yeah, I mean, we've definitely opened our eyes in the last few decades, to this idea that our kids need us,
Absolutely.
and obviously, like gender roles have changed a lot, so it's not all on the woman now. It's not all on the mom. I don't want to do that to my wife.
Well, I think that like a part of the gender roles too is that a lot of women are out making money too, and so then there's stay-at-home dads, which
Right.
50 years ago
Right.
could have never happened, right?
Right.
So there's different. It's more of a part. I shouldn't say it's more of a partnership, but
Right.
the kids, watching the kids is in a lot of cases,
Right.
it's looked at as more of a partnership where everybody kind of has their role.
Right.
But it's funny you mentioned like trying to squeeze in time, right?
Yeah.
And you have to maximize your time with the kids while also getting the stuff done that you need to get done, right?
Right.
And so, like you said, should I take them to the store? Well, the time that I cherish is taking a shower with the kids.
Right.
Because it's like we have to take a shower.
Right.
Jay comes back from hockey and he needs to take a shower before he goes to sleep.
Right.
That's the only time that I can get with him.
Right.
You know what I mean? So then, hey, let's go take a shower, and it's 15 minutes or however long it is, but it's me and it's him.
Right.
Right. And then that's it. There's no sister screaming, whoever else, and that's
there's nothing that can replace that moment.
Right.
No trip to the store, no expensive concert or show or trip to the zoo or nothing like that. I mean, like, yeah, of course, all that's fun, but it's that moment that's invaluable. I mean, nothing can compare to that.
Yeah, and I think that's why you feel the guilt is because they're at an age, especially when you have younger kids, where they don't care about about. It's like I told you one time too. It's another part of one of the reasons why we started the podcast is I said your kids would rather have top ramen with you
Right.
than lobster and steak without you.
Right.
Right. So like when you really think about it, you go, why am I really trying to make more to get them this and get them that when they don't care about any of that? They just want you.
Exactly.
Right. And that's the hardest part. Like we were, Jay had practice yesterday, and hockey's the most expensive sport in the entire universe.
Right.
And they get off and they're changing, and I'm taking the tape off of him, and he balls it up into a ball and he starts shooting it.
Yeah.
And then the other kid sees it and they're like, oh, and then he takes his other one off, and then they're starting grabbing old tape out of the trash can.
Right.
And you would have thought it was Game 7 of the finals.
Yeah.
They had way more fun
right.
doing that than they did on the ice.
It's a random piece of tape.
Right. And then one of the dads was like, why are we paying for hockey? Well, we could just give them some old tape in a trash can, And that's really what it is I think we put so many things on us, but we got to provide this for our kids. And it's the old saying where like you can spend $200 on a toy, but they're going to play with the box that it came in more than the toy, right?
Exactly.
I think it's a lot of stuff that we do, and then when you really think about those things, it makes you feel even more guilty because you start working and you can't really backtrack. Right? Like you can't say, you know what, actually, can I give you a little bit more money back and then I get 5 hours back? I mean, like you can't really do that.
Right.
In a lot of cases. Right?
Exactly.
And that's the struggle of being a parent is you need to earn, and then you get kind of locked into that.
Yeah.
And then you have more kids, and you need to have more of you there, and you can't.
Right.
So you just have to be squeezed all the time, and just feel pressure all the time.
No, it's true. I mean, and I'm gonna throw a shout out to your mama because shout out to Shelly. Yeah, shout out to Shelly because it must have been like, man, it's crazy to say it like this, but like probably like 15 years ago, 15, 16, 17 years ago or something like that. We were fresh out of high school. And we just had those conversations that we would have in the kitchen at the house, and Shelly, she brought up the concept of time. That stuck with us forever.
Yeah, we still talk about it.
We still talk about it. Like, I mean, we were young dudes just trying to piece our lives together, and then she throws this simple but very essential idea at us.
And you know what? She used to say that too because me and you, we're both like, I'll do it myself, right? And then we'll say, especially back in the day, when we literally had no money,
right?
But it used to take me. This is the first time she taught me that lesson. It used to take me like 6 hours to mow the lawn and do the edging and clean it up and get the leaf blower and all that, and then because that was my responsibility. So she was like, why don't you just pay somebody? And I didn't have no money. I'm going through college.
Not even an option.
Right? I'm like, no, I can't do that. And she was like, but they'll come here and they'll do it in 20 minutes. They're professionals. They got a team. They come out, knock it out.
Right.
You spend half your day. Your day's not more valuable than the $20 a month it would have been at the time, right? And so that was the lesson. Was like, and we talked about that too, right? It's like, yeah, you can. The money's the money, right? And we think it's more valuable, but at the end of the day, she's like, you can save yourself so much more time.
Right. And so like then so get this. So like we're talking about paying for a service or something like that. And Shelly was telling us that, time is the most valuable thing, right? And again, like to a lot of old folks, like they probably realize, all right, time is the most valuable thing. But when we were 18, 19, 20, we weren't thinking like that yet. All right. We were just talking about having a good time, not necessarily about the value of time.
For sure.
But then like what you're saying is, okay, let me go ahead and pay for something. That way I can have more time. But then on the concept of guilt again, you pay for something, then you're like, all right, that money could have gone towards my kids for something, right? But then again, we go back and forth with these conversations. I'm like, okay, actually, no, I don't need that money for the kids because the time with the kids is more valuable. So then there's that balance too. Like, do I want more time with the kids or do I want more money for the kids? Right?
Yeah, we struggle.
And that's a tough one because it just depends on the situation, right? But again, it's constantly floating on my head. Like, do I want more time? Do I want more money for the kids?
And that's, but the funny part again is like, okay, like on Sunday, like we've been so busy when the season starts and all this other stuff that happens in our life, we get really busy. and then we find that we don't have enough time.
Right.
And I go on a walk every morning with Alana, and I have these little mindful cards.
Right.
And one of them, the question was, "When was the last time you were excited?" And she was like, "At the car show that I DJ'd." She was like, "We had all the family together." And it was like a cool moment for me because to me, I thought that I was the one that was really enjoying these because I had my family together.
Right.
And she's a teenager, and I thought she can care less about that.
Right.
She was like, "That was the last time I was excited. Like, everybody was there.
Right.
You were playing the music I like. Brio was there.
Right.
We had the whole fam.
Yeah.
And we were...
you didn't even realize that at the time.
Right. And I realized it for me. I didn't realize it through her lens,
Right.
right? And that was the cool thing, like... it really doesn't matter what you're doing, and what I was gonna say is we're thinking, man, we need to go out and get something to eat so we can have time together.
Yeah.
And then, but really, again, you have that struggle of, man, we can make like we could just go get a loaf of bread and be out there with Natalie and Jay. They would be perfectly fine with that, right? Completely. But we have all these ideas, and every decision we make, we have to weigh those two things. And I think it's money versus time.
Right.
And maybe that's a big part of today's conversation.
And again, I mean, I feel like that's kind of what maybe we're taught, or that's kind of how we're programmed, I guess you can say, is like, oh, you got to buy your kids stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe nobody says it in those words, but that's just how we feel. I think like that's how I feel. I'm like, okay, what can I get my kids to make them happy, right? Again, that's the idea. I don't know if it's in this world or in this country, but like, again, like let me buy my kid this material thing, to make them happy and to show them that I love them. But again, like, on the topic of growth, like that's something that I have to reflect on. My oldest son, Jordan, he's 8, right? So over the course of the 8 years, like I'm learning. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that like we can't be too proud to do. Like you got to be vulnerable and just swallow your pride and be like, yeah, I got to learn from this, right?
Well, if you weren't a better parent today than you were 8 years ago,
right?
Then that we'd have problems. You know that,
exactly.
Right?
And I wouldn't be a growing tree. I'd be a little weed.
That's true. That's true. And I look back at some of the stuff I did with Alana, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I would never do that again today.
Right.
And that's kind of, but I don't have as much guilt looking back at that because I go, at least I'm growing, and at least she gets me a better version of me today.
Exactly.
And she needs me in a different way today than she did before, right?
Yeah.
But the guilt that that's the topic at hand, I guess, is something that I don't have the solution for it,
right?
But I hope that through conversations like this, we can grow and be able to handle it better.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, and I feel like we can all relate because one way or another, I mean, guilt is just a natural human feeling, and again, like we can reflect on like how we were raised. I constantly wonder, like, does my dad feel guilty? Does my brother as a father feel guilty? Like I'm constantly wondering. And again, I think it's just a matter of us reflecting on it because we all have different experiences. But yeah, the idea is grow from it and try to balance it, and again, just learn, man. Just keep learning, nonstop.
Yeah, I think we brought up or we highlighted some of the differences from previous generations, but kind of like what we always talk about. Everybody's out here trying to do the best that they can, right? And I think everybody who's trying to do their best then realizes that they weren't perfect.
Right. And
if you realize that and you want to be perfect for somebody because you love them, then you're going to hold that guilt. Right? They might hold it for something different, but I think everybody's trying to do the best that they can. Everybody learns with time and learns with experience. And so, I think our parents learn parenting through being a grandparent, right?
Yeah.
Or
that's a whole nother phase.
Oh yeah, no.
That is a whole nother phase. And I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll do a podcast walking around with our canes. But
oh man.
But I mean, think about that. Like, yeah. I mean, that's going to be a whole nother phase later on.
Well, I think like one thing that isn't highlighted or talked about enough too is learning from our children.
Exactly.
Right. Like think our parents learn from our parenting. And there's usually a lot of tension when you first start parenting because they did it before, right?
100%.
But there's a new way that you can learn and grow. But I think even when they're at their young age, I mean, I learned, we say that, Jay's like the moral compass of the house. Like, if you say something and you're not on point, well, how come you get to say that? Now, you know what I mean, right? Like, and,
he knows, man.
And we learn from that. We're like, and then we have to look at each other and go, it's kind of right. You know, we got to switch up. We got to be better.
Exactly.
You know? And that's you got to go into it with that frame of mind.
Exactly.
Right.
And the thing is like, again, some of these little life lessons, like, they stick with me. Like I said, shout out to Shelly. But like on the topic of Jay, like with what you're saying, like he'll hold you accountable. Like, again, one of the things that sticks out to me, and I always try to think about it, is they learn more from what they see.
Absolutely.
Not from what you tell them.
Absolutely.
Right? So again, you can tell them all you want, but what are you actually doing? Right? How are you teaching them with your actions? And again, like, this might be something that people have already thought about, but like for me as a dad, that's something that I constantly have to remind myself of. Because again, I can tell him he needs to stop eating junk food, right? And I'm holding an ice cream cone in my hand, you know? Like, I mean, again, like, we need to eat healthier, or you need to get off the PlayStation or the iPad, and I'm holding the phone in my hand.
Oh, that's the worst.
Right? I mean, again, that's something that I got to make sure I do. So I got to learn about that. But again, that whole thing of they learn more from what they do rather than from what you tell them.
Right? Absolutely. They mimic us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you hear your kids saying the same things you say, right? I hear Naomi copying Jay, right? My 2-year-old copies my 5-year-old. Right. She says things that she doesn't even know what they mean, right? But because she hears her big brother saying it, and hey, that's what I'm gonna say, right? And the kids do that, and there's that's another thing that you have to be conscious of and look at is how are they gonna see this? How are they gonna receive it? They learn how to navigate the world with how we navigate the world. Yeah. And if we're stressed out and we're bringing all that guilt and everything back home, it's not good for them. They pick up on it. They can feel that energy.
That energy, man. That energy.
And that's what we were talking about before. We're like, when we go hoop or we go do whatever we want to, something that's for us, it feels bad. It feels bad on the drive. Right. I went to go watch Max play, my nephew play, a game of basketball, and I took Alana. Right. And then I go to sit down, and my mom's there, and the first thing she turns around and says is, how'd you get away from the kids? Right. And I was like, it was terrible, man.
It's like you broke out of jail.
Yeah, they were crying. Everybody was crying when I left. They didn't want me to leave. It was horrible. I felt bad. I was negotiating with them. Like, I'll give you time, but I had to get out and do this, but it was too late for them to go with me because it would disrupt their sleep. Right. And when I left, I felt terrible.
You're a horrible dad.
Right? But what I learned was when I was there, I had so much fun with my family, watching the sport I love, that when I came home, Jay, of course, didn't go to sleep. Right. He stayed up, right? And he...
holding your butt accountable.
Right? Yeah.
He's like, what time you getting home?
Yeah, he's like, okay, well, you said that you were going to, so then I get home, and I was so positive, and my cup was full, that I was able to come in, and he had a great night's sleep because I was, playing with him or whatever else, able to give him the best version of me. Exactly. And that was the lesson I took away, and that's why when I leave to go hoop or whatever it may be, even though it's not common, it's worth it. This right now. Jay gave me a hard time when he left today to go. Naeli, same thing. But this is important. Yeah. Right? And then I feel like when I see them, whether it be tonight or tomorrow, which, by the way, they might barge in the middle of us talking here. Right. But I'll be better with them. Yeah. I'll be more patient. Exactly. I'll be more present. Right. Because I'm fulfilled. So. Right.
Yeah, man. That's like you said. I mean, the cup is full, right? Mm-hmm. You gotta let us know about that cup thing. That whole analogy theology, story, philosophy. I don't know what you want to call it, but you brought up the whole cup thing with me. And see, sometimes like you learn lessons and you might not remember every single word about the lesson, but the concept sticks with you.
Yeah, I mean,
So let us know about the cup.
man, look at you, man. Like, you should be the host. You said keep it on the growth theme. You're talking about let us know this, but yeah, it's a similar concept. The one that I use a lot is, they tell you when you're on an airplane, if you don't put your kid's mask on first,
Right.
the person next to you, because as a parent, that's what you hear.
Right.
Oh, so you telling me that I'm not going to put the oxygen on my kid before I put it on me?
Right.
But what they're saying is you can't help anybody else until you help yourself, right? And so that's kind of what the cup theory, I guess. I don't even want to call it theory.
Right.
It's a fact. Really,
Yeah.
is everybody needs something, right? So
Right.
everybody needs something from you. But if you start off and your cup is only halfway full, you can only pour a little bit into each person.
Right.
But if your cup is full, then you can hopefully give everybody what they need or the best version of you.
Exactly.
Right? Hey, I went into it full, so I was able to pour out all of myself to everybody else. Whereas if you're on E already, which that's the struggle, right? You come home, you're tired already.
Right.
You had a long day, and then they need you. You were gone all day.
All day.
Right? So you come in. I come in.
Yeah.
And the kids are literally waiting right there.
Right.
Jay used to wait by the garage and sit on the mat by the garage door until I got home.
And that's when you hang up the phone on me.
Exactly, because I'm talking the other way home. This same stuff that we're talking about. I'm like, hey man, I gotta go. They're literally right here on my leg.
Right.
But they're ready for you to be on.
Yeah.
And you may have had a bad day.
Definitely.
You may have got 2 hours sleep the night before because they were sick,
Right.
or came in your room, or had a nightmare, or whatever it may be. But you have to be on because you realize too the pressure of I only get like 2 hours a day with you.
Right.
So if I only have these 2 hours, I got to make the most of them.
Right.
Never mind having to figure out how to pay bills or what podcast equipment you need to get or anything else that you're trying to do. I always tell people when I get home, I got to ride home. And that's when I talk to people, handle the most business that I can. But when I get home, I'm busy until the kids go to sleep.
Right.
And me and you can talk like we did the other day for, I can talk from 10:30 to whatever time,
right.
And if it's important, we'll get it done.
Right.
But that time is sacred because I get so little of it,
Yeah, and it's a tough balance, man, because sometimes you want to get home and you want to do something at home that, like you said, fills your cup.
Yeah.
But again, your kids, they're waiting for you.
And they're not worried about your cup at
They're not
all.
worried about your cup, man.
They're like, man, I've been waiting for you to get home because I'm trying to do this. Dad, right? And then what do?
Right.
You don't go, nah, I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna go watch a show on Netflix you can't watch. And I feel like that's the vision that I have. And no disrespect to other generations, but that's the vision that I have. It's like I'm sitting on the lazy boy. Dad's doing that. We got to be over here.
Give me a beer.
Right? That's it.
Give me a beer and kick my feet up.
Right?
Oh, there's not enough salt on my dinner.
Oh man,
you know what I mean? Like all that.
Right? No, I hear you. Like that's the different generation. Like you when I talk about it, I talk about responsibility.
Right.
Like back in the day, your responsibility was to bring home the bacon. And if you did that, then nobody better give you a hard time, right?
Yeah.
And you come home,
right?
It's not my job to deal with this. I had a hard day at work.
Right.
I'm gonna sit here and watch my TV and not be bugged by you guys.
That's right. I did my job as
right. That's my role. That's my job.
Yeah.
Right. But then I think we learned, and it's probably because we learned from our parents. But even if they were able to provide, we realized what was missing.
Exactly.
Right. And our parents, like we said, especially us. I mean, we're really blessed to have great parents, right?
Right.
They did the best that they could, but we realized, hey, it's cool that you were bringing this home, but if you're working 90 hours a week, then I didn't get enough of you. And it was cool. I got to wear some nice shoes and go different places and see different things. But if you had to miss them because you had to be at work, then it really wasn't everything that I think that we wanted or that we needed. And now we're trying to do that, and it's harder than I think than we thought.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, everything you said, I could relate to, because again, like, they lived in a different world. I mean, like, our parents lived in a different world. Their parents lived in a different world, and now we are living in a whole different world, right? So I mean, yeah, like, I definitely learned from that. It's not really something that like I hold like resentment towards. It's just again on the topic of growth, right? Like we gotta use it to grow ourselves because there's no point in looking back and holding resentment. It was a different world at the time,
Absolutely.
and
And
so
just like we were talking about before, everybody's doing the best that they can.
right,
But just like in anything, the same thing we want our kids to do is pick out the good things
right,
that they like, right? And go, hey, I wasn't really a fan of this. I'm not going to do that with my kids. Hopefully, they can understand why we did it.
right,
That's all. That's all I hope for one day.
yeah,
But if they don't and they do it better with
yeah.
their kids, then that's something we'll be excited about.
Man, my dad was doing this podcast and stuff.
Right? I was trying to kick it. I was trying to kick it with him, and he's over here doing this podcast.
Kick me out of the house,
Right?
all that.
Yeah.
Nah. Yeah, but it's true, man. Like we gotta take care of ourselves, and again, sometimes we feel like that comes at the expense of taking care of our kids. I go through that all the time, and like sometimes I just want to go on a simple walk.
Yeah.
I just want to walk my dog. That's it. I want to walk my dog, but next thing you know, like, man, I'm not gonna be there to get them ready for school, right? Or I'm not gonna be there to help them with their homework. And I'm like, I just want to go to the dog park. You know, I love dogs, and I just want to go to the dog park. That's one of my happy places. But then I'm like, you know what? I got to take them with me. Because if I go to the dog park and I'm doing this fun thing, like they should be with me, right? I shouldn't be having fun without them.
That's the
Yeah.
struggle. Now we're gonna get to the second layer.
Yeah.
I don't know what layer of guilt
Right.
is. Then you can't enjoy anything for yourself, but you can't
man.
enjoy anything with your wife,
Oh man.
right? Because
Yeah.
if any time, it doesn't matter where you go in the entire planet,
Right.
there's something cool to do with your kids,
No doubt.
right? So when you plan a vacation, you're like, we gotta take the kids.
Right.
Like, there's no way we can do this without taking the kids. But at the same time, you need to have that time
Right.
without the kids. And so, not only is it hard to do
Right.
because sitters and whatever else you need to do, but there's so much guilt.
Right.
Like, we went to for Deontay's wedding, we went to Mexico without the kids. That's the first time we went on anywhere
Yeah.
without the kids since our honeymoon, right?
Yeah.
So we went there and we missed the kids, obviously. So we're
That
contacting
was the
them.
first time you went without the kids before you made the kids.
Right? Yeah, that's true. So then we were able to FaceTime them.
Yeah.
And we're like, look where we're at. And there's like this really cool, like we're on the beach and
Right.
where there's pools everywhere and there's
Right.
people and music.
Right.
And then I think Jay was like, well, that's why we need to be there too with you and
Exactly.
hold us accountable. And I'm like,
Exactly.
so then,
WTF are you doing, Dad?
Right. and why am I not there with
Right.
you, right? And then,
I
but it
feel
was great for Marianne and I, but Marianne and I the whole time were like, man, next time we come, you know,
Right.
we're gonna do this, we're gonna go
Right.
with the kids because you can't enjoy anything without thinking, man, this would be really cool for
Right.
them. And following up on that, so that was the first time
Yeah.
that we did any type of vacation, anything in
Right.
I think 6 years. Her friend was having a birthday party in San Diego, and so we said, we should go to that too. This was really good for us. It's just one night, we should do it. And then we gave ourselves every reason why we shouldn't. Oh, we're not going to do it. We already paid for the hotel, but we're like, we'll just let it go.
Right.
Like, we should stay here. She's got the sniffles. Anything you can come up with,
Yeah.
right?
Anything.
And then, like at the last minute, we called. Shout out to Xana and Ish.
Yeah.
We were talking to them and explaining because we were trying to get Marianne to go with Xana, or Xana to go with Marianne.
Right.
And then she was like, I can't because I'm doing this. But she was like, bring the kids here.
Right.
And we were like, nah, we're not gonna bring it's a lot of kids. We
Right.
can't bring all 3 of our kids
Right.
to your house like out the blue. And,
Right.
and she was like, nah, bring them.
Now you're just feeling guilty because you're throwing your kids at somebody
Exactly.
else.
And she's like, no, bring them. And her family's huge. She's like, we always got kids in and out of here. Like,
Right.
we'd love to have them, bring them. And then we kind of looked at each other and we were like, no. We were looking
Right.
like the whole time. And then finally we were like, you know what? We said this is really important.
Yeah.
We need this.
Yeah.
Let's go. And we went and we had the time of our lives. We were only there for one night.
Right.
And we came back in the morning and we spent the entire morning talking about our kids You know, we called my parents and we're talking about them and trying to work through things. But while we were there, we reminded ourselves that, hey, we're actually a good time.
Right.
And hey, we really have fun together.
Yeah.
We used to do this
Yeah.
more often.
Right.
We need to make more time for it.
Right.
And yeah, we haven't done it since. That was a year ago.
Over a year ago.
Yeah, over a year ago. But that's kind of what parenting is, and we haven't because of the guilt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, damn, that's crazy. A whole year. Yeah, and sometimes, like, even just doing something so simple with the wifey, like, it fills the cup, right?
Sure.
And we got to remember, like, I mean, I think that's the core, right? Like, you got to make sure that you take care of that relationship. That way, that relationship can go ahead and spread love.
We set the tone.
Relationships, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like we were saying, the energy, right?
Yeah.
Like, our energy has to be good. When we come back, I mean, you can see it. You can see our entire vibe is completely different. Our energy is completely different. What we have in our cup for the kids is a whole different story. You know, but my dad taught me this lesson that I'll, shout out to my dad. When Jay was still young, we wanted to celebrate Alana's birthday, and we were trying to make stuff happen because their birthdays are right on top of each other. And he was like, I'm going to take her to medieval times.
Right.
And so I'm like, oh, that sounds great. You know, we'll go. And I start talking. And I'm like, yeah, this. And I don't know how it's going to be with Jay because I'm going to have to, get him earplugs or whatever. And he's like, it's her birthday. She has her little brother with her all day. Like, let's just go with, without him. And then I was like, yeah, you're right. We'll stay home. And he was like, no, you guys need to come too.
Right.
But you need to find somebody for Jay, so that way she can have it. It can be about her with you there. And I was just like, man, that's the biggest lesson.
Yeah.
Because it made it really special. It's all about her. And that what we learned from that is like, hey, we can't always get a sitter. We can't always do stuff like that. But we have now learned the valuable skill. And I don't know if you guys have done this of separating.
Yeah.
So like just like tonight, Marianne's taking Jay. Where before we're all going together.
Right.
Everybody, we're all going together. If this is somebody's something, we're all going to his.
Because you feel like you should be a family all the time.
Absolutely.
And like you feel like if you leave somebody out, then now you're depriving them of the fun or something.
Exactly.
Like that, right.
Or you need to be there supporting, your brother or sister. And but that's been really helpful for us too, because you get that one-on-one time or one-on-two time.
Right.
And the kids need that as well. And we call it divide and conquer.
Definitely.
We have to divide and conquer on this one. We can't try it. It's too stressful. It's too much for us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I recently took Jordan. We went to Monday Night Raw for WWE. And, I mean, like, I was a wrestling fan when I was a kid. And, he likes wrestling a little bit. But, again, it wasn't necessarily about the wrestling. It's just about the time, right? It's just getting away for a few hours, different environment, just having fun, just father and son, right? But that's definitely something I got to do more of. With Mia, she's my 6-year-old, and again, like for me, especially like as a man to a daughter, I got to show her, right? I can't just tell her, I got to show her. So I mean, like we go like on our little Valentine's Day date, stuff like that. Again, something so simple, like we just went to the park, and it's crazy because, like thankfully we've gone to like Disneyland and Knott's and like gone on like a little vacay here and there. But what does she remember?
A little picnic in the park.
She doesn't say like, hey, when are we gonna go to Disneyland again? She doesn't even say that. She says like, hey Dad, remember we got Carl's Jr.? Remember Carl's Jr.? And I was like, Carl's Jr.? She's like, yeah, remember we ate it like at the park? And I was like, damn. Like, again, spent what? 100 something, a few hundred at Disneyland,
easy,
Knott's and everywhere else, and then next thing you know, she's like, yeah, Carl's Jr. Carl's Jr. at the free park. I'm like, okay.
So,
but again, I got to do that again because it's been a while, right? But again, I don't know, man. Like sometimes we forget, sometimes we get busy. But again, we got to make time for those little simple things.
I like what we've been doing this whole podcast, and we didn't discuss it at all, but it's been happening naturally. And Marianne and I have really made an effort effort to give people their flowers. We talk about it often. Hey, we have to give people their flowers while they're still here.
Right.
So we're constantly trying to give people compliments, give them kudos, right? I'm glad that we're doing that today.
Yeah.
Because that is how we become who we are. And a lot of times people give us compliments. Hey, good, he's a good dad. He's this, whatever. But we got everything that we know. We started accruing it from different people, from having conversations like this. I got a lot of stuff from you. I got a lot of stuff from coworkers and things like that you pick up little tricks of the trade.
It's like we're a puzzle.
Right?
You know, and then all of a sudden people are just adding a piece to our whole puzzle that we are.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to my cousin Marge, the late great cousin Marge, who passed recently. She devoted her whole life to being a teacher.
Yeah.
So the whole community has known her, Miss Rose, right?
Right.
But she always taught little kids, and you can just see the magic that she has when she has any kids around her. But the biggest lesson that I learned from her with parenting is, grandparents are the worst at this. Oh, I got the kids. I'm gonna give them candy. I'm gonna give them this. This is what they want, right? Or we're gonna ride a roller coaster. We're gonna high energy. We're gonna take them here. We're gonna do this. We're gonna run around. And that's not really what kids want all the time. They're just like us. Sometimes we want that, but not all the time. They have more energy than us, so they want to do it more than we do.
Yeah.
But Marge knew what kids wanted. My brother and I used to go over to her house, and you know what she used to do? She used to have incense going. It would smell good. It would be calm. She put on some calm music, and she'd give you a temple massage, and she'd just talk to you. Nice. And my brother and I, you would think we were like, no, we want to go back to Marge's house. Like, that's where we want to be. And you can go somewhere else, and they may have a trampoline in the backyard or wherever else, or a jumper.
Right.
No, like kids, you need that. Everything's so crazy, and as adults, we make it worse.
Right.
We're giving it to them. This is what they want. This is what they want. No, it's not. They want some good conversation, some good vibes, just like us. They want things to be chill sometimes. Sometimes they want it exciting.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have bad days too, or they're stressed out too. They have anxiety too.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to help with that stuff as well. That's a big lesson I picked up as well.
Yeah, and what it seems like she realized is that, again, it's not the material things.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? I mean, again, what's crazy is I think we give our kids sometimes a lollipop or an ice cream because we use that as a substitute for time that we haven't spent with them. Think about it. Like if you give your kids a treat, let's say, again, it could be like an ice cream or whatever it is. It's like, hey, let me see you. Let me make you happy, right? I want to make you happy. And again, think about it. Like, we're really gonna make them happy with this material object, right? But again, it sounds like Mars already knew it. Like, that don't work.
And it does work temporarily. Right? Like, I'm so excited about this toy. This is the greatest thing ever. And then you know how it goes. And then we're seeing who's going to take it off our hands, right? It's in the garage collecting dust till we can donate it, right?
Right.
But the first day they got it, that first hour, oh man, it was the most exciting. You're the best dad ever.
Right.
But that's not really it. That's not what they remember.
No.
1,000%. And it's not. And a lot of times it's a toy, or even worse to me is it's sugar. Yeah. Giving them something that's really bad for them. Because whatever it may be, guilt. And I think that's why grandparents do it a lot too, is because I don't get to see you all the time. When I do see you, I want you to be so happy. I want you to be so excited. I'm so happy to see you. Definitely. I want you to be the same way, right? Yeah. But parents like us will be like, hey, right. Like, you can't be poisoning my kid like that.
Ain't that crazy though? Again, like a different world.
Yeah.
Because again, like our parents, it's like, it's just what you do. It's you give them candy, you give them an ice cream, right? It's what you do. And again, like, shout out to my mom, but like, it's like, oh, can I give them ice cream? Can I? And I'm like,
right in front of them too, so they're looking at you like, "What's up, Dad? Is it cool?" It's like, she's cool with it. Are you cool with it?
But I'm like, hey, Mom, for what? Right? Like, they didn't ask for it. They don't need it.
It's not hot. It's freezing outside. It's
freezing outside. So for what? And then you feel like a jerk with your mom, because then you're cutting them off, and it's like, oh, well, come on, don't be so mean about it. Like, I just want to give them a little ice cream. Right. Mom, like, all they want is your time.
Look at this.
Look
at this. This is my conundrum. my dad owned a donut shop.
Oh man.
So they would have extra donuts, and they come over here and bring donuts. Then my mom lived with us, and she would come home and bring cookies and stuff. I'm like, Mom, we're throwing away crusty donuts. There's so much sugar in here. Stop. She's like, well, how come your dad gets to come and bring this, right? And I'm like, because he only comes over here every once in a while. You live here. You're here every day. You can't do this. You got to hold them to the same standards that we do. You can't be grandparent if you're here every day.
Yeah.
Like, you have to do it the same way that we do it here. Exactly. We have to care about health in the same way. And it's funny because my mom and my dad care a ton about health. Yeah. But when it comes to the grandkids, man, my dad he never not has like Skittles or something, Starburst with the kids. Exactly. And you're just like, man, like that mindset is hard to break. Yeah. You try to be as patient as you can, but also at the same time, you want to give them the love. I mean, when I think about the stuff that I ate when I was younger, and I laugh because it makes me laugh, not because I ate it, because I think, man, my dad used to eat it. The way my dad, he's eating tree bark and bee pollen and all the, you know what I mean?
God. The first time I went into your dad's closet, shout out to your dad, because he introduced me to some food items. He wasn't even there, but I just happened to go in his pantry, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Birdseed.
Yeah. Shout out to him because
all kinds of other
all the
products.
Stuff that
he was organic before the world was organic.
Yeah, the trendy stuff he was doing. Like I had soy milk because there was no other alternative at that time. When I was in high school, there was no almond or oat or anything like that. Like that was it. It was soy milk. We had that. He was eating goji berries and stuff.
I still don't know what that is.
Right? But like that now, you go to acai. Well, acai. He was eating that stuff
right?
I'm probably saying it wrong. I think it's acai, but
it's 20 years ahead of our time.
Right, but then when I think back to when I was a little kid, we used to go to. Now we were broke too, but we used to go to 7-Eleven and buy a little thing of like bean dip and buy a bag of Fritos, and eat that as our dinner. Right. And I didn't like beans, so I would get the cheese dip, and that was our dinner. Right. My dad, he would try to fight me if I gave that to my kids, probably. Right? Like, but that was it. That was the time. That was the knowledge we had. Yeah. Right? And you acquire the knowledge, and then I'm fortunate enough to be able to pass some of this stuff down to my kids at a young age, so they're used to it. Yeah. As opposed to trying to do it when they're a teenager. It's so much harder with Alana than it is with Jay and Naeli because they started off with that. Yeah. But it's like you said, we've been growing. It's all growth. Right? It's growth, and then you can only do what you can at the time. Yeah. Right?
Yeah, it's awareness, man. But again, awareness takes time, right? It takes experience. It takes meeting people, like you said. Like everybody that we meet leaves something in us, and hopefully good things. But yeah, it's just funny, man. It's funny to talk about like your dad. He was organic before organic was a thing, for sure. But then now he's got the Skittles and Starburst.
Oh, right. It's like he's regressing. I need to get on him about that for sure.
Yeah, that's that grandparent.
That's probably what it is.
Thing that happens.
Yeah. Hey, I want you to talk a little bit about. You talked about the logo, right? Yeah. And shout out to my boy George. Yeah. Crazy logo. Looks really good. It represents a lot of things. I love that you came in like, hey, this is what I see from it. Right. Can you talk a little bit about what you see from the logo?
Yeah. So I just saw the logo, right, and I hadn't even talked to you about your perspective on it. And again, like for anybody else that sees the logo, I think everyone's going to have their own take on it. But that's cool. Like that's what it's supposed to be. But like for me, man, that growth logo, like first thing I see is I see something growing, right? I see the tree. But then I also notice that, you see a square. But the square has something a little different to it. So at the bottom, you could tell that the square is a solid black line. And then at the top, the lines are a bit broken. All right, that's what I see. And to me, like, what it represents to me is the fact that you're on solid ground, right? The roots are deep. Because again, we all have deep roots. Like, some things that could have happened 20 or 30 years ago are still with us. Right? Like somewhere in here, the roots are deep. And so that represents the bottom of the logo. But going back to the top to where it's broken, that tree is continuing to grow. And I feel like as people, specifically talking to the fathers out there, we can't be too proud to grow. We can't be too proud to be vulnerable. Um, because again, like this tree in the logo, it's breaking out of the box, in my opinion. And again, there's always room to grow, always. And I mean, we're talking about grandparents. Man, when I was a kid, I thought my parents had it all figured out. I thought my parents knew everything. I thought my parents had everything taken care of. I thought that like life was good and everything was solid, right? And so now that I'm in their shoes, I'm like, my kids probably think that, you know, I mean, I hope they think that everything's taken care of and that I know everything and that you're always going to be there to protect them and so forth. But again, here we are learning, right? And learning represents growth. So I mean, like that logo, man, like that tree is going to continue to grow. I feel like that tree represents each and every person because again, like we're constantly growing different branches, constantly growing different leaves. And you know what? Sometimes things happen to branches and leaves, right? Like they fall off. But again, like you just got to keep a positive mindset. That tree keeps growing. So that's what I see. That's what I see with the logo. It just represents growth. It reminds me.
Yeah, give it sunlight, some water, let it breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that you said, and you started it off with that, is being vulnerable.
Right.
Right. Like if you're not pointing out your flaws or things that make you feel a certain way,
right,
then you're not able to grow. Not able to take what you have and say and learn from it. Right.
Yeah.
If you're not able to talk about past mistakes,
right,
then you won't know how to handle it better in the future. And so I think that's a big part of what this is. And as we're talking, I told you, like, you're asking me, hey, how do you, tell me how it's going to go. I'm going to prep. I said, look, I'm not prepping with you.
Right.
We've been having these conversations for the longest time, right? So I don't have any, pre-rehearsed questions or anything like that. Really, this is an introduction to what I'm trying to do here with this podcast and this season, especially this season's, about dads is, how do we grow? Right? How do we do that? And finding out those ways. And sometimes you don't know the path that you're taking or how you're getting there, but sometimes it'll just pop up on you, right?
Yeah.
And but if we can try to get on that path now, I do have a tough question. Considering your interpretation of the logo,
right?
We talked a lot about past growth, past mistakes,
right?
What does growth look like to you, like moving forward from today on, right? From where you are today,
right?
How do you grow? How do we grow?
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Because like again, okay, like in my situation, I got, like I said, I have an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 6-month-old. I've never had a 9-year-old. I've never had a 10-year-old. And you know what? Like, shout out to the wifey. We've been married for almost 10 years,
That's
right?
crazy.
I've never been married for 11. I've never been married for 12. And so my whole thing is like, that 11th year of marriage ain't gonna be like the first year, right? My 10-year-old in 2 years isn't gonna be my 8-year-old. And so, man, where do I go from here? Like, again, like the logo, I have to be open to growing because I can't just expect things to be the way I want them to be or the way that I think they're going to be. Like you mentioned it earlier, like we're not completely in control of our kids and how they feel, right? Again, like we want them to feel a certain way, like, hey, why aren't you happy? Hey, why aren't you thankful, right? But in all reality, that's not up to us. That's out of our hands. I mean, we can try, we can do our best, but yeah, man. To answer your question, like I have to just be open-minded. I try to remind myself, like again, just be vulnerable, be flexible, and then just continue to learn, man. I mean, some people know this. I'm a teacher, and sometimes people ask me like, "Why did you become a teacher?" And it wasn't until like my second year that I realized, like, because I have to keep learning. That's actually why, right? So I try to apply that to my life, but yeah, man, I'm just hoping to grow. I'm hoping to keep it positive for my kids, for my family, and then for everybody around me, all my friends, and anybody else, that's willing. Because again, going back real quick to the old generations, I don't know if they were that vulnerable. You know what I mean? So again, different world, right?
Yeah, I think that's the beauty. I always tell Alana that her generation is the smartest generation because I feel like they're past a lot of that stuff, like the ego and like I saw, I think it was a meme the other day. It was like 50 years ago,
Right.
And it was like, hey, the other day I went to go see my looks left and right therapist.
Ooh.
And then
Scary.
and it said now at the dinner table, girl, you're not gonna believe what my therapist said to me.
Right,
Like,
right.
It's not. It's a different world. Like,
Right.
hey, we all realize. I think the biggest part is that we need help.
Right.
Right. So if we all understand it, we're all on the same page.
Right.
We need help. Then you're in a better position to accept it.
Right.
And so I think one of the keys, and I really appreciate you. I appreciate you for coming to do this.
Yeah.
One, but I appreciate you every day being that person to not only audit what I'm doing when you're like, hey man, we've done this to each other on numerous occasions.
Right.
Like, I don't know if that's the move, right?
Right.
Or did you think about this? Did you consider this?
Right.
We need friends that do that to us.
Definitely.
We got to surround ourselves in circles where people know that you're comfortable enough to tell each other that, or say, hey, I did this, and absorb. And one thing we haven't mentioned is try not to compare.
Oh man.
Right. Try not to keep up with the Joneses.
Definitely.
And if you're not comparing, you're not being, green with envy, you're not being resentful, then you can say, man, that's a feather that I can put in my cap. That's a tool that I can add to my bag, and not be resentful that somebody else is doing it and say, well, how do I do that as well?
Exactly.
Right. And people like you, teachers, natural teachers, want to show you the way. Right. So if you're surrounded with people that want to give you the tools to succeed, want to show you the way, that'll put you in that position. It makes it so much easier. And that's been a big focus in our household is, hey, we have to surround ourselves with positivity. We have to surround ourselves with people that want us to succeed.
Definitely.
Right. And we, just like with our kids, we have to mimic that. We have to be that example. If we're not that, why would we attract that?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, man, like, even just this whole conversation, this whole idea of growth, like for me, the idea you brought up, the idea of therapy could be anything. Therapy doesn't have to be in some formal setting in an office,
laying on a couch.
Right? It doesn't have to be all that, right? I mean, if that's what works for somebody, great. But again, like we got to consider, like, hey, like what works for us,
for sure,
right? And I mean, for you and I, without even really knowing it, we've been having therapy sessions
all the time
for years.
All the time.
And it might be a 5-minute phone call.
Yeah.
It might be what is it? A 7:30 meetup for juices, like some old dads in sandals. Right? You and thongs.
The thong
I won't wear thongs. I mean, that's just not gonna happen.
Gotta let the dogs out. Bro.
Nah, that's not gonna happen. But again, like those are therapeutic sessions, right? I mean, we all need it. Let's not lie to ourselves,
Yeah, and we did it specifically super early so that we wouldn't take away as much time from our kids, right?
That's exactly. We're like, let me see what time I can sneak out.
Right. What's the earliest time that I can get out so I can get back before I miss too much time with them, because this is their time, this is their day, the weekend, right?
I mean, we're not going to be there when they wake up, and meanwhile we're trying to have this time together. But yeah, again, going back to all the way back to the topic of guilt, right?
Well, with all that being said, what is important, like I said, is giving flowers. The number one thing that I wanted to relay to you is that you are doing an amazing job, right? I feel like, we put so much pressure on ourselves to be our idea of a parent. But like you just said, when you were little, you thought your parents had it all figured out.
Oh, man.
If I go and ask Jordan and Mia, how's your dad? They would tell me you're the greatest.
Right?
Because you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
They would. I know it. And that's And that's what we need to remind ourselves
Yeah.
all the time, is that, hey, being a dad is hard.
Right.
And we can sit in that and be in that moment, and we
Right.
can, joke about it and laugh about it because we want to cry about it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, don't ever forget that you're doing a really good job, right?
Yeah.
And all we're doing is sharpening our tools. We're getting better, right? And we can't hold too much regret with how we handled things before. We just have to try to focus and be better. I know for me personally, my relationship with my dad is stronger every day than it was in the past,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, me and my mom kind of always been on the same page.
Yeah.
But there's always room to grow.
Right.
And so, whenever you feel like you're behind, just remember that you're doing great.
Yeah.
And you're just getting better. And things like this, taking the time to do things like this, and what we do all the time. I know for me, it sharpens my tools. I get better from all the conversations that we have. So, man, kudos to you. Hats off to you.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that, man. And I mean, the feeling is mutual, man, because again, like you said, you got to surround yourself with people, right, that bring positivity and lessons and that just make you better, right? So again, man, you and I have conversations and they're just random sometimes, and next thing you know, like all of a sudden that random conversation is popping up in your head a week later while you're trying to take care of your kids and do your best. And so, like, one thing that I didn't do and that now I'm attempting to do is, you mentioned the word sacred, right? You get home and I'm trying to tell you this story and you're like, hey man, I just pulled up to the house, and I'm like, but, and you're like, nah, like I gotta let you go. And I'm like, all right. And it took me some time, but I'm like, okay. I mean, I get it. I get it, right? Because again, sometimes I show up home and I'm like, yep, I gotta be there. The time is sacred. So yeah, man, shout out to you too, because again, like there's things that you're doing as a father. Think about this. There's things that you're doing as a father that are foreign to other fathers, right? Maybe they've never experienced it. Maybe they don't even know it exists. But again, like you opened my eyes to some ideas. And again, I'm gonna do this shout out because behind every father, right, there's gotta be a strong woman.
Hey yo.
Okay, so shout out to Marianne because again,
hey yo,
your butt would not be the father you are without her. I mean, let's be real. So,
and I'll sling that right back at you, right? Like, we only get the ability to feel guilt because our wives are holding it down while we're gone, right? So we wouldn't even have that option to feel the guilt because they're taking care of the majority.
Yeah.
Right? We're just trying to get in where we fit in and do everything that we can and really support them in the role, really. And that's a big part of it too. Like sometimes we got to take care of the moms so that they can be better because we're not there. Right. There's only so much we can do when we're not there. I try. I'm calling there. I'm FaceTiming all the time, doing whatever I can in any little moment that I have. But it's not the same. It doesn't replace actually being there. Right. Being present. Being a presence as well. Yeah, man. I thank you for doing that for sure. Yeah. And there's no real format for this, right? So we're just kind of chopping it up. I don't know the best way to go in and out of these things, but I did want to ask you, I told you the other day that I was proud of Mia for how she behaved at your birthday party, right? Yeah. I have a good one, a story of a moment where I was proud of my kid and how they responded to something. And it was kind of like an aha moment of like, man, they do actually listen to you. You think sometimes they're not listening to you, but they're absorbing it. Yeah. They may not absorb it when you want them to, or they may not show you that when you want them to, but they do. But is there a moment that you can think of that you were like, man, I really put my stamp on this kid, or what I was really working on them? I'm really proud on how they handled it. Is there anything that you have on top of your head? Man,
so like Jordan, right? I mean, he's my oldest, so he's got to set the example. But for him to set the example, I got to set the example, like we talked about before. So, you know what? Like, the kid is just kind, and I might not have like a specific example, but I think as I see him walk around, as I see him interact with other kids and even adults, there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be kind to everybody, and that means the world to me because again, like there's no doubt in my mind that if a kid asks Jordan for help, that Jordan's going to try to help him the best way he can. So I mean, for me, like my stamp is that I see is just trying to get him to understand that like you got to be kind. You know, you got to help people. So yeah, I see him like when he goes to school in the morning. You know, he's excited. He tells me stories. You know, like he likes to introduce his friends to new little games and things like that. I think that all just comes from a place of kindness.
It is. I love that. Um, that's a word that I was. That's a lesson that I took. I was actually at a debut. Shout out Uncle Rick. Uncle Rick, he gave a speech and he said, "I told my kids every day when they left and they got out of the car to go to school to be kind." And it got me to thinking like, what's my most important thing that I want to instill in my kids?
Right.
And kindness has got to be up there.
It's got to be.
It got to be number one, or if it's not number one, it's number two. You know, what is it? And so the fact that you use that word, is, you know, I guess I could ask you, is that what you think, or what do you think is most important to like kind of instill in your kid?
Man, I would say, like you said, kindness is up there. Respect is up there as well, of course. But I mean, right along the lines of kindness is just love. You know, I mean, for anybody that knows me, like my whole thing is just like I just want people to feel the love. That's it, right? Like I really have a hard time when people just don't feel loved, don't feel like they're cared for, or something like that. So yeah, I mean, like with Jordan, I mean, and with Mia and with Jalen, like all three of them. Yeah, I would say like kindness, love, and respect. You know, like, and again, we can get real philosophical on what those mean, but you know, at their surface, like yeah, kindness, love, and respect, probably the three most important words.
I love that. I think everything kind of relates.
Yeah.
So I'd add to that, if I can, is empathy.
Yeah.
I think you and I are big on like teaching our kids that hey, you need to look at every situation with empathy, and it'll be easier for you to be kind and loving. Right.
That's true. Yeah.
And you know me for more than half my life.
Yeah.
I don't go around throwing around quotes.
Right.
I'm not a quote guy.
Right.
But the only quote that I probably know and that I love is
here it comes.
Is
what is it?
Maya Angelou.
Okay.
Angelou is people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Damn.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you're kind, and if you show empathy, you show support at a time when someone really needs it, they'll never forget it.
Right.
And you know, raising our kids to be that way in the world is a big goal, and it's a struggle. You know, it's a struggle, and they're not going to be perfect at it. We're not perfect at it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely huge in my book. I got to get my proud moment off. Like a week ago, I was like, man, we have too much clutter. We're constantly fighting it. I was talking to you about that. We got to get our space has to be clear so our mind can be clear.
Right.
So then we realized Jay's been a little off. He's been a little more amped than usual. So, you know, Miriam was telling me about that on my lunch, did a little check-in, and I was like, you know what, tonight we should all together go into Jay's room and clean his room, right? And tell him that we're doing it because we love you,
right? And
we want you to have a clear mind and a clear space so you can have a clear mind and be at your best, right? And I thought he was gonna be like, whatever, Dad. Like I'm not trying to go clean with you, like you know.
You're trying to trick me into making it fun.
Right.
Come on now.
Man, he was so excited. He was like, it's almost like it's my birthday because everybody's doing stuff for me.
Wow.
Right? And so like you're like, okay.
You never thought he would take it there.
Never. Right?
Yeah.
And then the next day I was driving him to roller hockey, and on the way there, I said, hey, when everybody went and cleaned your room, how did it make you feel? And he immediately said, happy. And then I didn't say anything yet. I was waiting to see if he elaborated, and he was like, and I had a clear mind.
Yeah.
And I was thankful.
Wow.
And I was like You don't think that sometimes, but man, they're listening. They're trying to
something so simple,
right? And so now we're trying to put that. Tomorrow night is Alana's room. Right?
Yeah.
And then we're trying to go throughout the family, and then we do it together. We show, hey, we care about you.
Don't let them walk up in your room though.
Oh my goodness,
Dad! Wait a sec.
Yeah, like you said, you were supposed to have a clear mind. Look at your room.
You said those 2 words right there put together. That's tough.
Yeah, but yeah, to me, I guess it's just like to put a pretty bow on everything. Excuse me, I know that picked up, but to put a pretty bow on everything. When we tell these stories, these little victories and things like that, like you said, hopefully everybody learns from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not coming from a braggadocious place or whatever it is, right? It's like, hey, this is a win. I feel good about it. I'm proud about it. And picking up little things.
Yeah.
I guess I don't want to ramble on too much, but I will give another shout out to a coworker of mine. He said that his father was in the military, and he was gone all the time. And so whenever he came home, he had a gift in his luggage. So it was a way to get excited about him coming home was, I'm going to run out there. I'm going to help him with the luggage. I'm going to pull it out the car because I know there's something in there for me.
Yeah.
And him and I were on a work trip. And he's like, hey, I got to go to the toy store. Like, we had stuff to do. We're busy.
Yeah.
I got to go to the toy store. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, is there something, somebody's birthday? He's like, no, every time I come home and every time I leave, if I'm gone for a night, when I come back, I have to have something for them. And so then I'm like, all right, I'm going to steal that too. So now I got to do it too. Yeah. So every time I went on a work trip, him and I, we went to the same place as the toy store. We hit the toy store. What are you getting today?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, your kid's into this. You getting one of those? Yeah, oh, hey, check this out. I saw this. Like, do you think they'll like this?
Yeah.
You think Jack will like this? Like, that's what I'm trying to facilitate. I guess. That's what I hope this is.
Yeah.
Is that people learn from this. People can understand, hey, I feel the same way. I'm not the only one that feels this. I picked up some nuggets along the way.
Yeah.
And, giving you kudos again. You are the expert, right? You're the person today. You're the dad. You're the one who's working it. We don't need to do research to have this conversation.
Yeah.
We live it, right?
This is truth.
So
this is just every day, man. It's
right?
crazy.
So, no, I really appreciate having you on, man. We'll have to do another one of these days.
Definitely. And I mean, yeah, shout out to all the dads because again, like none of us have the formula, right? None of us have the formula or the recipe. Man, I mean, shout out to all the dads out there because like you said earlier, like we're all trying, right? We're all doing our best. And again, like we all come from different experiences, different backgrounds, but yeah, we just got to keep growing. I mean, I don't want to tell anybody what to do, but if I could offer some advice, and I offer it to myself all the time, it's just stay open-minded and just try to grow and try to learn nonstop.
Growth.
That's it.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
All right.
We'll wrap it up. Sheesh. Hopefully it recorded. I have to go to the restroom so bad.
Did that camera turn off?
Let's see.
I heard it.
Oh, I probably did. I don't know what it recorded or what it didn't. Let's see if this one's on. It'd be hilarious if
you know what's funny as we're talking about all this stuff, I'm like, I can't wait to hear Deontay. I can't wait to hear Anthony.
Yeah. That's going to be the beauty of it all.
I can't wait to hear, Martine or anybody.
That's going to be the beauty of it all.
Wayne.
Yeah. Oh, Wayne can scare me.
No, for sure.
Like, Mello, like.
Yeah. Hey, man. It's still recording over here. We got one. This is a good shot.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's if because this is about, like, our experiences, but more than about our experiences, it's about listening to the experiences of others.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really where the growth is going to happen. It's just learning from others.
1,000%.